Howdy folks, last week I did some green and yellow Chartreuse Substitute tasting. I made a stirred drink called the Bijou in that video. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch that one. But this week we're going to make some classic last words. I enlisted the help of some friends to give a sort of different perspective on it. So it'll be a little bit of a different format this week, so hopefully that's fun. Let's check it out. So first off, Auntie Susan thought it would be fun to do a sort of blind tasting of our green chartreuses to see if what her thoughts would be, if she could tell the difference between them and which one she preferred blind. That's just something we do for fun around here. Now, if you want to see my thoughts on these few bottles, go back and watch last week's video in part 1. In the meantime, let's see what Auntie Susan has to say.
I mean, that seems pretty definitely blindfolded.
Starting to smell chartreusey in here already. It's right in here. I'm just going to touch you with it.
Yeah, that's great. So this is the first one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It smells chartreusey. It's hot and thick. I mean, this feels very much like actual chartreuse to me. But that's not a guess yet. That's my sense of number one, the thing you handed me first. I'm going to want to come back to it, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with it?
Put it down.
I'm putting it down.
I will move it.
Okay.
I'll hand you the next one.
Okay. This one's more licoricey just on the nose already. Hey, wait, where's my water? It's super licoricey, thinner. I think this is probably Ver, but I'm not sure. From the nose, I'd say this is probably the Genepi, but let's find out. Oh. Less sure now. Yeah, I don't want to commit to anything on that one right now. It smells like chartreuse again. It's really good, whatever it is. I liked it. Oh.
Here's your last one.
Okay. Here's the Genepi. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And you'd like to try. You'd like to start your guessing.
Okay. So I think.
Would you like to try anything else?
I think the first one I said was chartreuse, and the second one I said was Ver. The third one I said. Let me try the third one again.
You didn't want to commit to the third.
The third and fourth ones are the Centerb and the VEP, and the fifth one is Genepi. That's where I'm leaning right now. I'm going with 3 as the Centerb, 4 is the VEP, and 5 is the Genepi.
What about 1?
1 is just chartreuse, and 2 is Ver.
So you're saying 1 is chartreuse, 2 is
Ver,
3 is
Centerb.
4 is.
I said it was the VEP. I might need to try 1 and 4 again and work on that.
And 5 is Genepi.
Yeah, I want to try. Let me try 1 and 4 again.
Okay, here's 1. Here's 4.
I'm just going to stick with my original guesses. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This whole thing was an experiment.
Okay.
Let's find out what happened.
Take off your blindfold, and you can see the answers.
What was 1?
VEP.
Okay. 2
was Centerb.
I said it was Ver.
You swapped the Ver and Centerb.
I mean, that's not surprising.
And you swapped Chartreuse and VEP.
That's not bad. I actually feel
pretty... And
pretty...
you got Genepi right. You were very confident about Genepi.
I was. And I feel pretty good about that. If I swapped Chartreuse and VEP and Ver and Centerb, I think that is pretty good. And I feel fine. And I think that tells us something about the characteristics of Centerb and VEP. They're pretty similar, but they're not mistakable for chartreuse. Whereas chartreuse is mistakable for its fancier self.
Yes, correct.
And Genepi tastes different, and like notably different, like really clearly different.
It's its own thing.
It's its own thing. So that was fun. Thanks.
Great job.
Thanks for letting me do that. So the next question is, do we want to put them in last words and see if we can tell them apart, or decide which last word we like best?
Yes, we are going to make last words. First, let me just mention, this confirms some of our notions, okay? The centurbe and the vert, they're not going to be confused with chartreuse. Like, they're not the same. And the Genepi is more of like its own thing. It's recognizably itself rather than being confused with Green Chartreuse. Some people in the comments of last week's video thought maybe Genepi was more like yellow chartreuse. I kind of feel like it's somewhere in between green and yellow, a little closer to green, I think, but it's really more like its own thing. Also, let me just mention, Auntie Susan hadn't tried a lot of centurbe and vert before this. She'd more or less never had them before, so it's not so amazing that she got those mixed up. She has a really good palette, especially when she's blindfolded, which is kind of a superpower. Now, for the next portion of this video, we're gonna make 4 last words. Auntie Susan and our friends Justin and Aaron, who would come over to play board games, are gonna run through and give their thoughts. I thought it would be fun to have some different palettes involved in tasting some of the stuff, just get a different perspective. So you guys can, see what people think who don't think about this 24 hours a day. But first, montage.
Justin, I'm a friend of Pete's, and I'm here to chew bubble gum and drink chartreuse, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Okay, last words. Tasting last words.
I am going to try the chartreuse first.
Start with the chartreuse.
That tastes very good.
Yeah, delicious, balanced, refreshing. It's a good drink.
I remember the first time I had a last word, it kind of blew my mind. And I smelled it and I was like, oh yeah, that my mind is blown feeling.
I will try the Genepi.
Less citrus note, more sweet. Less anise. Mostly sweet component. It feels less complex.
Last word, but with Genepi. Smells like nothing. No smell. Very, very mild. It's really disappointing after the chartreuse one. It's just not, it's sort of syrupy. It's just a sweet lime sour of some kind. It's not really got that much character.
Can I have like a piece of bread or something?
No bread. No bread. No bread with one meatball.
Alright, now I will try the centurbe.
Weird, what is going on there? I'm not sure what I'm tasting there. It's definitely hotter, especially on the finish. Mildly unpleasant.
Ew. Well, it's different. It's got more going on than the Genepi version. It tasting something. I mean, there's something there's sort of a bitterness or there's a darkness to this one.
Do you want an oyster cracker?
Oyster cracker is nice.
Slightly
Bland.
oystery.
A little bit stale.
And now I'm trying the vert.
No, that one's kind of interesting. This one tastes a little bit more balanced, but it's different. It's almost like this is like a dessert, turns this into some kind of like a dessert drink. In a way, I find something similar between these two guys. In that there's all this herbaceousness up front. It's like one thing comes after the other. Herb stuff, and then the acid stuff and then the sweet finish. And this one is the same way, where these two are not as complex. They're just the fundamental stuff. It's just like
Sort of getting in each other, get in the way of the line and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have an oyster cracker. Last we have ver. So on to the ver. Rhymes with bear, not fur. Huh. This one might be the most pleasant and interesting after the original. It doesn't have that dark, bitter weirdness of the center. And the Genepi just didn't taste like anything. This tastes like something.
And now I'm going back to the Chartreuse.
Okay.
Let me go back to the Chartreuse.
This one and the Genepi are very, very, very similar. I feel like there's something of sparkly about the Chartreuse. And then over here with the Faccia Bruto, it's still a tasty drink, but I'm going to say it just doesn't feel like the last word to me. Where this one did feel like a last word, it just wasn't as sparkly as this one. And then the Ver, I ended up getting more of an hot alcohol feel to it, which maybe if I was in the mood for that, that could be a thing, but it is definitely not the refreshing, I want to say, prohibition feel that I get off of a last word.
So these are not the same, but I think you get as much of a journey or close to the same amount of like interest out of the Ver that you do out of the Chartreuse. This one was the Genepi is just less interesting, and the center was sort of unpleasant. If I didn't have Chartreuse, I think I would make a last word with Ver, but it wouldn't be as good a drink probably. Still, probably worth making.
That's a layman's review of these 4 fine liqueurs. First off, like we were talking about, I felt it was really interesting that this one really has the nose on it. Mm-hmm. Like, whereas none of the others really have any, which is weird.
And I think everyone agrees Genepi is more sweet.
Yeah, but I think it was appealing to some of us and not appealing to others.
Yeah, definitely my sweet tooth was like, this would go very, very nicely.
So I rated this guy number 1 and this guy number 2, and I don't know, 3, 4.
I probably went 1, 2, 3, 4 because I thought this really had an unpleasant flavor.
I found it a little weird and off-putting too.
Pouring.
This one is different though. It has an unpleasant. Now that I'm coming back to it, it has an almost like aspartame kind of like end to it.
That's a fake sweetener?
Yeah, I find that one distinctly unpleasant, and I would not drink. Well, I drink it.
I think it's more like a soapy floral.
Soapy
And floral.
It is not good.
I still think if someone served it to you, you would drink it.
Probably.
This was not high on anyone. Well, you
It reminds me more of like lemon drops, a little bit. But hey,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to bum out your choice.
sorry, it's fine. I taste more herbalness in it, and I do think that gives it probably what I was thinking of as heat before.
I think the Ver is a pretty reasonable other option for a drink that has some interesting flavors in it. I really would put the second, for me, that's the second choice.
And I put this one last, actually.
Really?
But-
That was the burning one for you.
Yeah, and I think it's just less sugar content or something.
I like my
because,
sours a little.
Like I'm the person
Sour
who brought
side.
4
Sour
cupcakes, so there's a different thing I'm looking for.
All right, let's turn this off.
Should we wrap
I
it
can
up?
go feed the cat,
Okay,
and then we can have cupcakes
Yes,
and play games.
cupcakes.
that's good.
Great.
All right, so that was all pretty fun information, I think. One of the most interesting things to me is how, with the lime juice and Chartreuse interaction really makes the whole thing brighter, makes a last word really sort of uplifting drink. Whereas with other substitutes like the Centurb, it really sort of made it into sort of more of a bitter thing. Worked pretty well with the Ver, but with the Genepi, it sort of just flattened everything out. It's just super interesting to me how just slightly different ingredients interact in different ways, and sort of sometimes they combine in a beautiful way, and sometimes they just cancel each other out or produce some bad flavor. So anyway, it's just a fascinating thing about this hobby. You never really know what you're gonna get, and you have to just keep exploring. So I think I agree with Auntie Susan. The Vert was probably the best substitute when it came to a last word. The Genepi being a little too sweet, a little flat. Although if you really like sweet drinks, you know, Aaron preferred the sweetness of the Genepi in the last word, but you know, that's why it's fun to have different palettes involved. Anyway, there's no real substitute for green chartreuse. If you find a bottle, you should probably buy an extra, just because you never know when you're gonna see it again. And these other options, these substitutes, they're pretty good. In different situations, some can sit in pretty well, but they all have, you know, some drawbacks. Well, hopefully that was entertaining and or informative. If you've made it to this far in the video, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment, that really helps out, and we will see you next time.